Start?
Okay.
Oh, yes, sir. Ready.
You ever drawn that in?
It's 5:34. I'm gonna go ahead. Call this
I've
workshop
been there
meeting.
once. Shop town.
And
Oh, yeah.
for start of business is to ask if there are any comments from the
I
public,
don't know whenever.
either for the planning board or the council.
Well, we don't have a plan, we don't have a quorum, so we're not.
Oh, no, I guess one, two.
We do. Gary's here. There's four.
Gary's hiding on the wrong side of the table, got me all confused.
Anyone here wanted to comment before council or the planning board, so we will move on to our regular agenda, which is to discuss the 2026 comprehensive plan and zoning with representatives Baxter and Goodman. And I'll turn it over now to Jody Weaver.
Well, I'm gonna go ahead and let Kristen take the floor. Sure. Just keep us going from last night.
Great, thanks y'all for coming again. I know last night was a long night. I felt like y'all gave us a lot of great information. So we spent today kind of going through the zoning that we've actually, given you guys in front, and have like matched it to our PowerPoint. But we kind of just want to continue the discussion again. We're going to be a little more focused today. So I'm not going to break y'all out in groups and like 4-part discussions in the same way. We're going to keep it in like an open format and kind of walk through the stuff together and just make sure that what we have in the our 11 by 17 that we saved for giving y'all makes sense. I do want to tell you there's 2 pages, so you're not surprised when you see a second page in it. But just to continue again, so we did introductions yesterday, so I don't know if we necessarily need to do that again, but we do want to start off with an icebreaker again. And then, so I'll get to that on the next slide.
Oh, hang on, I got the wrong one, I think.
Okay. Yeah. No worries.
Did you push
And
record?
then, yes. And then we'll kind of talk through generally what we heard from the future land use sticky dot exercises, like the things that we thought were important. I'll walk you through the purpose of zoning. It sounds like some of the groups might be a little bit confused or maybe need clarification, not quite sure what to think about zoning yet. And so I'll download you on what zoning is, the point of it, why are we considering this at all? At some point, we'll need to talk about manufactured home and home parks. We have a specific ordinance that we've got, we're kind of thinking about for that. And then we'll go through the contents of the actual zoning ordinance itself. And then we'll do another sticky dot, I'm calling it a sticky dot. It's actually this exercise. So we'll walk through this together. I should put it on the agenda that way. So the first thing I'm wanting to do is, so on the introduction slide,
This one?
so go to the next
Or the next one?
Oh, on slide, you should be on slide 15.
15?
Yeah.
Down here?
15, yeah. That was yesterday.
Oh,
They don't want to redo
this one.
Yeah, so
Okay. This one or next one?
so the one above it.
Okay.
So this one, so I want to start off with, you don't have to say your name, your role, but I do want you to mention the type of development you're wanting to see. So I'll start with Jody.
What type of development? I mean, we need some more. I mean, apart from housing, obviously, we need some more retail. I would like smaller shops downtown, a bookstore, that sort of thing, with a souvenir shop or little art gallery, that kind of development.
Mine?
Yeah.
Oh, what about some kind of nighttime entertainment, nightlife kind of entertainment not only for the kids, also for the grown-ups. There's no place to go except home, go to sleep. You can't keep people there. They're always looking for. They're always going to Victoria. Always leaving town.
I'm kind of with both of those. I like our downtown. We have like little boutiques, shops, retail. And, you know, like live music, something for adults just to sit, chill, and be able to do the rest of that downtown. I'd like to see boutiques and souvenir shop. We have no souvenir. We have no.
That's right.
To say Port Lavaca, this is Port Lavaca. No, my son's friend called the other day, he goes, hey, he never heard of Port Lavaca. So he's like, hey, bring some back. And he's like, when am I gonna bring it back? We don't have nothing that says Port Lavaca. Okay. So, yeah.
Yeah, the downtown, businesses, I'd like to see some small, eateries. Get coffee and donuts or sandwiches or whatever, and then tie that into the waterfront. A place to go, take your family and able to sit at, covered because of the heat. And of course, I know more retail, more housing.
Yeah, I'll kind of ride off of that one too. For tourism, it'd be nice to see the downtown turn into bars and restaurants and retail. So we can, you know, keep the character of the downtown, but also have a draw here for tourism. And with that, developing the bayfront, like I think a lot of people enjoy the bayfront beats. Even people come from out of town to see stuff like that. I'm looking forward to it here in the near future. And fishing and all those other things that can get people to come out here.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I think the same thing, develop downtown more, little shops and stuff and push down here. Yeah, thanks, right.
Kind of the same mode. I think we should continue working on our bayfront, maybe bring in some, entrepreneurs that do kayaking and different things that do attract tourists, sell boats. See if we could work something like that to help attract more people down here and enhance our fishing area. And I encourage boardwalk will go a long way to help that also. We
Yeah.
do need to work on our retail, small retail.
Yeah, I think that's something we do not want to forget to keep in mind as soon as the breakwater's done. So I think that's what's holding us up from doing that. Once we get that, we need to do that.
That was my thought, daytime recreational, you know, maybe the kayaks, the jet skis, maybe some, like ice cream, you know, just get an ice cream and a burger on the waterfront. Somewhere where people can spend 4 hours or, you know, stuff fun out there.
I think we need something for kids, you know, some like a Peter Piper's or something like that. We don't really have nothing like that I know of where kids can go inside and have a party or something like
Yeah, I'm gonna kind of echo the same sentiment, but I'm gonna use a word that I've used before. I'd like to see infill development. I'd like to see us reuse or recycle what we already have built and use some of the lands that we're not using. One of the big comments I hear from people my age coming through town is that it feels empty, ghost town, things like that. We've seen statistics on our population declining. And I think there's a lot of areas of the town that have access, have use, have land that, you know, we're very focused on new development. I think that's great. I think increasing the bayfront is really helpful, but you got to drive through town to get there. And it's not always a pretty sight. I'd like to see some infill developments, cleaned up, reutilizing empty buildings, making some sort of system in place that we can encourage people to do that.
But
Yeah, go ahead.
your turn. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I'm the same thing with Justin. I think that it'd be nice if we rebuild the buildings down Main Street, but also think about like 35, all those empty buildings, like HEB, all those empty buildings. They need to be built. Something needs to come there to bring more people to want to be Port Lavaca. We need more businesses.
No,
No.
She's getting.
okay.
Yeah.
I don't know, I kind of drawing off of most everybody else with the bayfront is, having some type of entertainment plus a restaurant type deal all in one time. Yeah, I've seen that before where we have that, where you have that, and then also they're renting kayaks and things like you were talking about, all in one little area. It's just a whole bunch of different things that families can do all in, right there on the water. I think we have some good good locations to do something.
Um, I know, I would like to see a downtown coffee shop for sure.
Yeah. That's coffee.
Yeah, so do I.
We always look for
Yeah.
little mom and pop shop coffee.
Yeah. Totally, yeah.
We agree. I think one thing that it's not necessarily the land use, but I can say that the time that we have gone down to the park on Bayfront, when you turn around and look, the community, it looks so beautiful.
It does.
And so I kind of feel like the, your perception, like where you're at, kind of like lets you know like what the community's like. So I got to thinking, I don't necessarily know if it's a specific land use, but I think it would be helpful if there was like photography that could show like.
You're reading my mind.
Yeah.
I mean, we got a grant for,
Okay.
I think $5,000, and we're matching with a couple thousand in donations. We've got 5 locations down here, Bayfront, that show, it'll be, a sign that will show a photograph from about 1905, 1908, somewhere in there. But when you look up, you see the same view today. And so there'll be a photograph and then there'll be some historical text.
Yeah, just through the lens of our photos, it looks so different than, and it's a perception, like what do you see? And so we were talking about that today, we're like, look at this photo. And I'm not even a professional photographer, like I'm not great, so I can't imagine what a professional could do, but I was kind of thinking that today. Okay, so now we're gonna kick into, just a quick, so today we're gonna talk through like all the sticky dot stuff, like that translated into our zoning exercise, right? So these items here, but in general, what I think we heard yesterday, I heard that we definitely agree that there's sort of 3 different zoning districts. It sounds like there's 3 different residential districts we're thinking about. So the urban area kind of on the outside of town. There's the existing kind of smaller areas that we have in Port Lavaca that we definitely want to sustain. There is an area kind of in between that we think is a zoning district as well. And then I think sort of a 4th one that we need to discuss today in detail is multifamily. And I think that's when we talk about home parks, we talk about single mobile homes in general. We talk about what to do with them. Is it apartments, townhomes, kind of duplexes? We talk about, I think there's a specific category for that, which is 4 different, uses, if you will. We'll go into detail about that. I think there's several areas that possibly have commercial retail. So we have the big box, which is one district, right? So that's your places where you've got your Lowe's or you've got your Walmart, like along the main corridors. And I heard y'all when you said the main thoroughfares are really what drive the type of corridor, and that the larger roads have the larger corridor. And then again, you have the smaller ones that are kind of local, so we call the neighborhood ones. And then I think also we're looking at possibly mixing in commercial with mixed use areas, whether it's along the bayfront, the downtown area. There might be some specific mixed use sites in the community. I heard that I think there are 2 industrial areas, one that's heavy that we're really not a fan of. So we want to keep what we have, but not expand, just kind of keep existing and market that way. We need to talk a little bit about industrial business parks on where do those go. It sounds like it's a good tax base for us, but figuring out kind of where. And then we need to explore a little bit more about the waterfront district in the downtown. So Brianna and I put together this, this zoning guide here, and we want to go through it today. So it's going to be a little bit different. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to run through this presentation, and then we're going to back up and go line item by line item and walk through each district, and then pretty much ask the question, what do we miss, right? So we went through the maps the best we could, but I'm pretty sure y'all might have gained some details that we, didn't quite catch. And so we're going to go through them line item by line item. But I'm going to just walk you through it real quick, and then we should end up with a pretty good marked up 11/17 today. And then, that'll conclude the meeting. So, and we're gonna shoot for 2 hours today, like no more going past our 7-hour time, so, or 7 o'clock time. Okay, so let's go. Okay, so the role of zoning. Okay, yesterday we talked about comprehensive plan, right? So basically the state of Texas says, yes, you need to create a comprehensive plan. It's pretty much the best thing you can do for a community, right? But it says that these are all the things that go into it. And it doesn't necessarily say in the state of Texas you have to, but it does say if you're going to, these are the things go in it, right? You can go to the next slide. So, but if you're gonna do zoning, you have to have a comprehensive plan. So you have to have this in place first and adopted before you go through the next steps. So that's kind of where we are now. And just to give you a highlight, these are really a lot of the core items that are talked about. So the top left is really, it's a couple things. It's heavy industrial. It's also what we call outdoor storage, where products are seen from the road when you drive down the street. Sometimes those are like nuisance in communities. So that's two things to talk about. A lot of times flooding, especially in Texas along the coast. Those are definitely something that we want to think about as well. New development on the left. So what does that look like? Do we want to go with a different like kind of character? Do we want a different home type in here? Like if there's new stuff coming in, what does it look like? And in the bottom right is where do we spend our investment, right? Is it on roads? Is it specific areas that we want to see revitalized, turned over? And so those are really the reasons that a lot of people actually go forward with zoning regulations. And we'll get to that in more detail when we get to the like further in the presentation. So yes, once you adopt a zoning code, there are a lot of process and procedures that go in place. What we're trying to extract today is that level of process you're looking for. And so one of the things I was telling Jody was that essentially after you go through, zoning code update, there are going to be expenditures in here. So sometimes staff needs to be identified if we're going to put certain permit processes and things like that in place. And so in terms of, when we're putting together a zoning ordinance, we've got to think about the impacts of that on the staff in-house. And if, of course, we need to add staffing. There's also going to be things like, adding an actual zoning, planning and zoning commission instead of just planning commission. So there'll be some steps there. Maybe a board of adjustment if anything needs to be like kind of modified and stuff. So there are going to be some processes and procedures that get set up. But at the end of the day, the goal of the zoning is to take exactly what you have now and to turn it in a product that you're looking to have in the future. So that's the goal of our ordinance. I think this is a really important discussion. So one of the things that we did yesterday is we talked through, of course, our character map and our future land use to give you an idea of like how we create that, right? So we'll take the feedback from the future land use that is put in the comprehensive plan and finalize it with the adopted comprehensive plan. But what that is it's a guiding document. So the future land use, what anybody that can do should be able to look at that and figure out where you're wanting to develop it to go. It's not something that is, it's not by law. It's just something that you're generally trying to recommend, and then it matches the text in the comprehensive plan, right? When we push over to zoning map does become the law. So it becomes a lot more set. And but the difference between the future land use and zoning is future land use is one land use district. A zoning district is multiple. And so a lot of people think that a future land use map or a zoning map can be, the regulations can go too far. It can actually broaden up what you're looking to do, and it can focus you where you want to go. So we think of terms of, what we want along the waterfront district. We're not just talking about, having a restaurant or just a park. We're talking about a menu of land uses that we want in that area, and they all just sort of tell a story of what we're wanting in that district, right? So that's the intention, is to build those kind of through the community itself. And then there's going to be a lot of regulatory things that we'll talk about, like specific items with it that come along as well. I did want to mention that whenever we were looking at the zoning, creating this zoning chapter for the comprehensive plan, there were a lot of things that we saw that were definitely going on. And of course, we talked to staff as well. It seemed like the original one that was maybe recommended a while back was very detailed. It was quite frankly a little bit confusing. I got a little overwhelmed when I was reading it, and so we looked at what the existing districts were. We looked to kind of like how far they were going, which is the ones on the right here in the table. And we tried to make some. We tried to be like very keep it very clean and simple. Maybe just update some definitions. And for now, I think the whole point is to keep it simple. Let's not make this thing crazy and chapter upon hundreds of pages. Let's just keep it, really very focused on what we're trying to do. We know that we want to conserve the character of the existing community, so we're not looking to, change this place a whole lot. We're just looking to enhance, and so that's also the point. And then we want to definitely protect, environmentally sensitive areas. So areas along the bayfront that are, wetlands and things like that. We're definitely trying to build the environment instead of for the environment and take over. And so those are the kind of things that we're, looking to do, and then to also figure out what we're going to do about manufactured homes. I think that's a big discussion for how we're moving forward, and of course, process procedure for that. So as we're going through, looking at the zoning chapters that are proposed, right here on the left is the ones that we have shown today. So rural undeveloped or outside town, those are the ones that are mostly ag land today, maybe one structure on them. And then, we have our R1 and R2, which are the two other residential. General residential are the ones that are the smallest parcels we have. We'll walk through all of these here in detail. MFR there, that is actually one that multifamily residential, we want to go through the process of making an approval for those instead of just allowing those to turn over. So for example, if there was a manufactured park that wanted, or a manufactured home that wanted to come in or like change specific things about the building, we want to actually have approvals and things. And so this kind of gives you an idea of like what we're proposing. There are zoning standards for each district. So within the 12 districts right there, we always address height. We want to make sure the buildings aren't too tall. We want to make sure that we're looking at like size and setbacks. So do we want the buildings to be super close together or a little further from the street? Those are the kind of things we're looking at. Surface parking, do we require parking lots, or are they allowed to, park on the street? Sound, lighting, and signage are addressed, especially in the areas that we have commercial and industrial. The intensities are going to be, it's going to be a little bit more intensity. So we want to make sure that we have more rules in those districts than residential. And the whole point of, having, landscape buffering, zoning requirements, things like this is to protect residential. And so generally what happens is the rules are more intense for the intensity of the use. So with industrial being the most intense use in town, they have to protect the most from the residential, right? And then followed by commercial and retail. And so that's kind of how it works. The more intense use is more responsible for the impact of against the other uses. And then we can also go through, permitted land uses. So these are things that are allowed today. They can build outright. If a developer comes in on a certain property and they're allowed, they can just, go forward as long as they meet the standards of it. And then, of course, a specific use permit is the properties that we're considering for places like manufactured, home parks. Are we wanting those to come at all? And if so, a specific use permit would allow for a public hearing where you would have to come forward with the Planning and Zoning Commission, actually give your case, and you'd have to go to council for approval. So those are the kind of things we want to set up, make sure we're protected in the right way. And then, of course, things like non-conforming uses. If there's anything that we don't want to see that we want to be phased out in the community, you can put rules and regulations for that. And then we probably need to update some definitions and then add process and procedure. So that's generally what we have recommended. And it's right here in our 11/17. We'll walk through that later. In general, I'm not going to go through this like in a whole lot of detail, but in general, the districts that are yellow up here are, those are residential, and the goal is for them to be residential. So on the left, we're seeing the zoning district, and then of course on the right is the land use. And so the ones that are brown, urban residential, manufactured home park, multifamily, those three are ones that are a little bit more intense than a residential in terms of like density, about, the bulk, like how much building can go on like a plot of land. So they're a little different, darker color. And then the red and the maroon happen to be your commercial residential ones. And then of course you've got your business park and industrial, so purple. So just to kind of give you an idea of like what's in your recommendations. So all of the zoning districts that we have all of these identified. And we'll walk through those in a little bit, but every district that you have, you want a maximum height. You want to make sure you have a landscaping requirement, a signage requirement, someone's putting a sign on the building and things like that. So these are kind of the basics of each district. And then I'm actually going to skip this one. I'm not going to do that to y'all again. So one thing I do want to mention is I'm going to start walking through our item. I want to make sure everybody has one. Does everybody have a set in front of them? Okay. So we're going to start going through each district now, line item by line item, and walking through the purpose of it, where it's located. We're going to show you here on the zoning map, where that actual those items actually live. And then we're going to go for feedback every time. Down. So 28. This one? Oh, that was not in the right place. Well, there's a random page, there's a random slide. Okay. Yeah. So the first zoning district that we're going to focus on is RU. So, and just to remind you, so I tried to put the photos in here that we talked yesterday that are applicable for that district that we talked through. But these are the areas that currently we have as ag lands. And then I know you can't really see it in the bottom one, but that's actually that's like the ag land in the very far periphery. It's actually an RV park. And so these are just kind of remain as is. Like we're not really intending to touch them at all. So, and then of course, when you look at the general purpose of the district, we want to preserve, right? We want it to be open space, a farmland or individual homes. These are the largest parcels in the community. And so we want to keep them that way. We don't want to, super build these up and change them really in any way. We just want to keep them as is with kind of maybe a smaller structure. And then we list the permitted land uses, right? So we want to see undeveloped land. We want to see a large lot, like a large, it could be a home on the property that remains, ag land, range scales. You can have like farming, pasture land, things like that. We're also allowing for a police or a fire station to come in these areas because definitely as we're growing, we want to make sure that our service areas can still be reached. And then in general, we recommend parks and open space throughout all of our zoning districts. I think it is a quality of life that we want to have is for parks. So we never want to kind of limit parks in any zoning district. And so if city wants to come tomorrow and put a park in, they should be allowed to do that, right? And then the minimum lot size for this area is 2 acres. So a lot of the parcels are much larger than 2 acres now, but we want to keep them, the minimum lot size is 2 acres. So we don't want to go any smaller than that. And then if you turn to the next page, we're getting a little more detailed, but in general, what this says is that, we have large setbacks. So we have anywhere between 100 to 150 feet from the road where the structure would actually face, which is really far back when you think of a football field or further. So it's pretty far. In the ETJ areas, it's actually 200 to 300 feet. And so it kind of gives you an idea of like the setbacks. We would allow for accessory dwelling units, which is when you have a garage that you want to have kind of like as a living quarters. So if you have a main structure of the house and then you have a separate like area that's your garage, we would allow for someone to come in and build, say, above it or add to their garage to have a living structure, just as long as it isn't, it's probably 50% the size of the house. We don't want to have 2 sort of like mansion structures. And so we want to make sure that we maintain kind of the scale. We would allow for that. And then with a conditional use permit, we would allow for daycares, like home occupation. We would allow for all of these things, fences, bed and breakfast. The fences, we are recommending for those to be above 8 feet in height. In the back of the property only. So you don't want them in the front. You don't want to see, people coming in and starting to build kind of like barricades on the front of their houses. No taller than 45 feet in height, which I think is a discussion from what we had yesterday. From what I understood, we don't want to go taller than 36 feet because we're talking about not going taller than a 3-story building. So that's a question if we want to, maintain that height. The thinking from our end is these are really large properties kind of set back from the road itself. And so we want to go a little bit further. That's why we allow for the 45 foot in height. Vulcan density, we're saying that we want the majority of it to stay above 70% open space. And so we're saying that we don't want them to come in and actually have areas that are not green. And so we're trying to maintain that open space ratio there. And then in general, what we have for any of our residential, which is rural undeveloped, rural residential, general residential, and multifamily, that we would require landscaping for a new property but just along the perimeter of the building. So just right in front of the house. So we would require it, those are different standards than we would have for retail and commercial. And then light and sound parameters, they're provided, but we're not going to be as strict as say the industrial district. So we'll have some things that basically say, don't turn lights toward your neighbors, just keep them on your own site. Don't be loud over a certain decibel level. So there's general standards for that. I want to go ahead and open it up for discussion. Was there anything in that gave you a heart attack? Was there anything that you wanted, to ask questions about?
From an educated perspective, 45 feet feels a little high.
Okay.
Is this, rural development, is there gonna be an access road that's gonna swing through there sometime, or how are we gonna get to these places?
So residential, great question. So what we have marked on here is the green. So these dark green areas are mostly around the ETJ area, J areas on the outside of town. They're not, a lot of them actually aren't in Port Lavaca. And so there are really large areas kind of outside. And if we don't annex in these properties, we can't put rules on like that, right? Until they come part of the city limits.
Right.
But in general, they go kind of around this area. And the areas here that we have, these little like kind of hatched areas, I believe are areas that we recommend future roads. And so if we build in the future.
And I think if you put a road in, they're gonna develop around it. Something's gonna happen around the road.
Okay.
So that would be the first thing that we would do would be, before we develop it, we give people access to it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. And if that was in the city limits, we would require roads. But if it's in the ETJ area, that would be in the county to, say what's allowed. And so really what these zoning districts show, because it is in ETJ areas, it's only if they came in our city, right? So for purposes of putting together a zoning district, this is for planning for the future, but we can only do what we can do if they're like in our city limits. Yeah. But we have to think that way, because what if we did have someone come and we want to become part of our city limits? Do these standards make sense for us? So if home builder came today, there's no rules, right? But if they came and this was annexed in, this would be their rules. So do we agree with our rules? That's what we're trying to get. That's what we're trying to get at.
So yeah, like if somebody came, for example, wanted to build a housing development out here with 2-acre lots or whatever, and they were asking to be annexed, that would meet with our zoning map.
Yep.
But if they came in, they wanted to put like a apartment complex or something right there, then that wouldn't contradict what we had in our zoning.
Right. Right. And really, when you have conflicts like that, you want the developer to come. So that's another reason for zoning. We want them to come to city and say, this is what I want to do. And then the city should be able to decide, do we like this development? Do we want to change the zoning, to MFR, which is what our district is? Or do we just want to tell them flat no, because our zoning district says that what we want out here is, larger homes and we want to maintain. So it allows you to make a decision instead of just the developments take place without any authority. That's a great point.
So on the accessory building, are you just allowed one per property, or do you have multiple?
Usually we allow one. Some places where you have like a shed and things are usually trying to clean it up, so don't have multiple. But yes, usually it's part of the structure is you really want it to be sort of like a look and the feel of the house. So we're not trying to add like storage sheds in the back. I know that we have a challenge with storage sheds, and so that's something that we probably want to limit so that we're not getting possible squatters. But those are things to think about for sure. Any other questions? I like the height of 45. So what height makes sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think we were saying over 2 stories.
33 feet.
Except in the rare occasion.
the all the building, I get that, but I think like.
I think everybody's in agreement, the two-story would be
Yeah.
appropriate, so third.
You know, maybe 2.5 story if you put deckers. I mean, you can do something.
A little finished up attic.
Yeah. Or nothing that's-
Look out that way.
Okay.
Ready for two.
So-
Good, it's changed.
Just for clarification.
Yeah.
Only if somebody wants to come and make a development in the ETJ and wants to get annexed, then they'll be subject to our rules.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we can't force annexation anymore, but if they request it, we can.
So like Red
March.
Bush, when we took over the water, sewer and streets, we said, well, if we're doing that, then you're getting annexed. Right? I mean, that was the agreement.
Yeah, but anymore, I mean, and I don't remember what the laws were back then, but no longer the state will allow us to annex unless, we can only annex if it's voluntary annexation. They are requesting to be annexed. Used to be you could go and annex once.
Yeah, but a lot of cities require that. So if it's in the ETJ and you're saying, yeah, if you want to come in our city limits, sure, come on in. You can have water sanitary, but you have to come in our city. And so there is a control over water sanitary. There's a control over development with water sanitary. And so it's really good that Fort Lavaca does have those facilities because it does allow for a chip to, again, bring the developer in. And then if you're going to come in, you sure are going to bring your tax base in. And so that's a discussion.
So where does that capture though in the zoning ordinances and stuff that state right there, that if you want utilities?
So I think we wrote in our utilities chapter.
It is.
Yeah, it's about new development and how you sort of like, how you use your powers that be to do that. But the city also has to have capacity. They have to be able to maintain facilities but yeah, it is a business method for sure. It's also a business method I'm jumping forward, but if you look on the north side of town out here where we have the purple, right, that's the business park area. If the city decides that we don't want, for whatever reason, we don't want that development in our, and it's actually in our ETJ, we don't want it in our city system, there can be a discussion about that as well. So the city gets kind of like the right of first refusal in the city limits, but then in the ETJ, you get to negotiate and decide that do they come in. So in that case, the city could actually, require the development to have their own facilities based off of the developments. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So if there are we didn't like the height. Thank you for taking my bait. I wanted you to. It's good. Very, very good. R1, the rural residential. This is the development, the second sort of residential area in town that also has a lot of like existing properties in here. And yesterday, the one that we talked about was, Redfish. So it's our large lot residential. The point of this category are to sort of like keep rural in nature. So we don't want to really change what they are. We want to keep the character exactly what they're like. But we want them to maintain the large front and back, side setback, the exact framework they have now with the same open space. Permitted land uses. So in this category, if someone came to this city and said, hey, I want to develop within this site, rural residential, very similar to what's here, would be allowed. And this could actually be an accessory structure. So when you look at this garage here, you could have like living quarters on the top floor. We're also allowing for like schools, public institutional, like churches, city halls, things like that to go within that category. Also parks and open spaces, but we're mostly leaving it to rural residential, which is R1. The minimum size of the lot is 1 acre. So we don't want anything that's smaller than 1 acre in size. Again, larger setbacks, kind of similar to what we have for RU in that it's very rural. We talked about the detached garages, right? That can be an accessory. No conditional use permits here. This is straight up what we want. We're not allowing for anybody to put anything else in there. So it's a straight district. There's no negotiating in this one. 40 foot for the building height, which sounds like that might need to be brought down to 2 stories. Okay. And then we're allowing for a little bit more bulk and density. So it's possible in these lots that we might have a detention component somewhere in the subdivision. And so we gave a little bit more of a bulk and density here, which we might actually have to calculate if we're gonna change some of the requirements for it. But 60% of the area needs to be open space. So we don't want to see a lot of concrete everywhere. We still want to, have a lot of infiltration, like natural infiltration with, rain and things. Landscaping, buffering, and also sound and lighting is very similar, if not the same as RU. So besides moving to a 2-story floor, was there anything else in this district that you're thinking needs to be added? And also to clarify too, so the yellow that we're actually showing is the second pillar here. So it's kind of a greenish yellow. It is, the areas.
Redfish is.
Like, yeah, redfish in it, right?
Yeah.
I'm kind of looking at this.
Yeah,
Yes,
That
so
area of
redfish.
Independence.
So right.
Yeah, like the top left corner of Roloff.
Right here.
Down, or down,
There.
right there.
Oh,
Yeah.
y'all, sorry. Yeah, so this like kind of greenish area here.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if y'all can see these, but these area here, that's a good chunk right here. I think that's actually
That's-
R2. There's a chunk no, that's R2. Yes, chunk here. And then these are our kind of smaller lots in here. But these are the areas in town that are our middle category, if you will, for residential. They're still maintained.
And so looking at this, the recommended front setbacks, I know we just recently had one development came in, subdivision, that they are 1 acre lots, but they're short and long. So in a case like that, then would the setback just be, I don't know, would it be a variance? Would it be how would you handle that?
So I think what we would do, if we're okay with that development type, we would just change it here. If we don't like it, then we would go ahead and mark it and like make the setback more. But if we want to maintain that same.
Because it basically would be
Yeah.
like for a smaller subdivision with like a 25-foot setback, but they are 1 acre lots because they're real long.
Gotcha. So we'll check that then. You're saying the front setback?
Yeah, and so in reality, it's more like general residential, probably.
Yeah, I think they were 100 feet.
Yeah, but they were
Okay.
1 acre, but they
Yeah.
were real long.
Okay. We'll check those. Yeah, thanks for checking that. Yeah, but the R2 is very small. So we go to like a very small lot, they wouldn't fit in that. So we just need to set the setbacks too.
Maybe proportionally somehow, I don't know.
Do we have a square footage minimum on these kind of houses? Like if somebody went in on one of these giant lots, and put in a tiny home, that's something we're permitting?
So the only thing that we're saying right now is bulk and density. We're just putting the amount of open space, but you can do that. So we can set what's called a floor area ratio on like what we'd allow for that development. It's not something we had put in as a standard.
Right, I was just thinking if we're trying to talk about character and things like that, I know that's, somebody pointed out that's in some other codes with minimum requirements, so it's
Sure.
1,000 square feet. I'm not saying we have to do anything extreme on some of those, I've seen some HOA requirements that are crazy. But
Yeah.
just if you're building a building like that, and then I come in and drop a dirt one next.
Yeah. Yeah.
400
Yeah.
400 square foot
Good
building,
point.
I'm living out of that, is that the kind of more of a rural undeveloped, or is that more of a rural residential?
So, yeah, that's a great point. I would say in general, rural urban right now is just not developed, right? They're basically undeveloped properties, but we can be very specific on what we're looking for. So yesterday, the conversation we kind of had was, hey, I sort of feel like small residential, medium residential, or like similar. So we could group them where we say 1,000 square foot home to a 2,000 square foot home could fit on this property. So you can give a range like that.
I think something like that would fit. It'd be like
Sure.
a minimum of
Please tell us
1,000 to a maximum of 60.
Sure.
Because you've got the 60% of the property is the maximum space that allowable to use.
Yeah.
could you say that we require these kind of residences to be at least 1,000 square feet? Or
Absolutely.
or whatever the number is that we feel comfortable. That way they're building, we're not just using all this land with one small residential thing. We actually get a tax base out of that. Well,
Yeah, you can do the sizes, height, anything like that. You just can't deal with colors. or these-
right, building periods all the same.
But there's cities that prohibit tiny homes.
Yeah.
You can, there's cities that say, one bedroom house has to be a minimum of 800 square feet.
Right.
A 2 bedroom has to be 1,000 square.
I don't want to get crazy stringent, I don't want to be the HOA of the city of Portalaca, but just to kind of keep that structure in that same kind of deal. I think there's something to be said about I know I'm moving into a neighborhood, I'm buying a lot. I know my neighbors are gonna have similarly shaped sized homes. I'm not gonna be living next to a bunch of little man camp fishing houses or something.
Yeah. Do you think it's a minimum of 1,000, a minimum of a certain size?
I mean, probably something
I
like
would think
1,000. I
1,000,
think
yeah.
it's probably fine, because if you go below 1,000, I mean, there's a break point somewhere in there, and somewhere between 1,000, 1,100, 1,200, where it becomes like a 3 bedroom, 2 bathroom versus a, 1-1 or something. I don't know exactly what that number is, but you can probably find it, there's 15 rooms in your level.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great point. It does open the question though, do we like the idea of tiny homes? Not in this district, but do we like the idea of tiny homes? So for example, one of the manufactured home lots, right, they come and
Skipping ahead
say.
now. Who's skipping ahead now?
I know, we like the topic, so.
Yeah. I think for me, just me, the tiny homes fit into the same style like that, as like a manufactured home park, a tiny home park,
Okay.
an RV park. I kind of like to see some structure built around the use of tiny homes rather than just sprinkle and
Yeah,
drop.
gotcha.
That maybe you okay them in the multi-family area, but you don't allow them in the general residential.
Right.
But I think parks is more what we're looking for than single tiny home developments.
Okay, so do those have a minimum?
Those have a minimum size. We've had them with minimum sizes, or we also have, Derek, there's an ordinance that we have with minimum per person, livable habitable space.
Yeah, but it's not that much.
It's not that much, but we.
125 for the first, 75 for each additional. So
Yeah, so it's not much on, tiny homes would meet those same
200
requirements.
square foot for 2 people.
Yeah, it's not a lot.
But you still have to, but you still have to consider the bathroom and the kitchen.
Yeah.
It does increase the size of the
Well, I think that one time.
Yeah, you want.
I think we had a 450 minimum once a month.
Yeah, I think it's, when you figure everything in, it's about around 400.
I mean, it wouldn't hurt to have something that, has I think if somebody wanted to come in and do a tiny development, it'd be nice to have some kind of guidelines, kind of like we do with our nationally, the adopted national RV park guideline that we have. Just something similar where it's like, again, where the developer comes in and says, this is what I want to do, and we go, cool, here.
Right. Okay.
We don't have to reinvent the wheel every time somebody walks in the door and asks.
Okay. But I do want to mention, and this isn't me like trying to sway the room at all, but homes in general cost more to the city, right? So when you come in and put single family homes in, they're more expensive. That's just how it is because the cost of services and all that, right?
Yeah.
Which is, I think, why we're also trying to offset the tax base with other services, right? So if you're wanting a minimum, there's not a problem with that. I actually would tell you that it probably makes sense to put that in maybe every district. If we're going to put a minimum, let's put a minimum because we're being consistent. Yeah. So if we're gonna, that's how we're gonna write our zoning district. Let's be super like specific about it, where all the residential ones are this way. Multifamily is different, right? It's a different category on its own. But I would tell you to be very consistent in what you're doing. So if there ever was a problem, the city is consistent.
Okay.
So you're not going against a tiny home with the size when you're going, to the second zoning category for residential and telling them they also have a minimum to meet. It can be based on the fact of doing business, on the fact that the city wants to maintain a certain level of service to residents and also looking at the cost implications. So there's nothing wrong with saying there's a standard when this is one.
Okay, cool. We'll just pull that in as we go.
Yeah, so do you want a minimum or should we actually say like the maximum size for this development is?
concern.
You can do either.
Yeah, I think my concern is a minimum, just because it's like you said, if you're gonna be running services out to somewhere, you wanna have.
Jim and I recommend 1,200 square feet. So, yeah,
That was 1,200 was the.
a little bit three-bedroom home. That you can go smaller, but that's a general. Size.
So for our R1, you're recommending a 1,200 square foot minimum.
Yeah.
For R1
We
development.
do a minimum.
So I got, okay, so for R2, let me make sure I got it right. I got a 2-story max. 1,200 square foot home minimum.
I'm talking into 1,000. Like I say, me and my wife were retired, we don't have any kids, 2 bedrooms and.
It's too big.
Then you need to move into
That's
R2.
too bad, yeah.
Well, my house was 1,000 square feet. There's 3 bedrooms, but it was built in 1932.
Well, that's what it is. You can do it.
Yes, you can make it, it's small. It's only got 1
That's why
bathroom.
you know, but if we had them.
You wanna split the minimum to 1,100?
In the middle.
1,150.
Yeah. There we go, 1,100. Just, a little more, it's a little bit arbitrary, I think we'll flexibility in there. Yeah.
And we're still talking about bulk and density.
Yep.
When you're, yeah, okay.
We are.
When you say, schools, you're talking about public schools, correct?
Yeah, we can also talk about like Montessori schools, like you can talk about church school.
Well, no, I'm asking, is this public schools?
You can't say.
Thank you.
So First Amendment, the freedom of speech, I'll be very careful with schools.
Well, no, okay, well, you know, and you mentioned like churches and I'm thinking, I'm still thinking specific use permit,
For a school,
for churches. And
I would recommend against that. The state of Texas has come down really hard on churches.
I haven't
you
seen any
can-
cases
you can
where
say-
cities got beaten by it.
You can require something like a traffic study and things like that. You can go for, don't go after the use, go after the reason. So yeah, churches, you can require that.
Well,
We
no,
can
I mean,
say-
because it's an assembly, it's a type of assembly or,
Fire code or something.
something like that, I think it requires a specific use permit.
Look offline on that. Yeah. look offline. I think
Yeah,
it's-
I've never heard of any cases where it's been an issue with that. If you, say somebody wants to develop a church right in the middle of Redfish, I don't think they go over to it.
Okay, then we need to be real specific where we want them in a zoning district, because the thing is, with zoning, we have to be real careful that we can't eliminate like a business from coming in. We have to put a place for it. So if we're gonna do schools and you wanna do that, then let's limit where they can go.
Whether
And then we can add rules like traffic study and things like that. We
That's
can
why,
add
that's why they
things
need a specific use permit and they require all those studies to do that too as well. Same thing with, you do like a drive-in theater or stuff like that, you know, because you're gonna need large acres for that too. So that's gonna be more in the rural area, but it doesn't really quite fit in the rural district, you know, the way you define it. So I think it would need a specific use permit, but it's gonna need what, at least 5 to 10 acres to operate. I don't know what I thought of that, but you know, but, you know, they do still have them around some places. Let's see, well, like I was saying, the veterinary clinics, things like that, that could are a nuisance to people
Mhm.
because of the odor and everything else. It really isn't defined as industrial or anything else. I think something like that would require a specific use. I'm thinking, because of the use, it causes a strain on that district.
Yeah, so we've got some of that in our other districts. I know that's something we could probably add. But I would caution schools. I'll talk to you.
Well,
about
public
that.
schools, I can see that, yeah.
Yeah, I'll talk to you about it, but
Yeah.
again, go after the reason. Is it traffic? Is it noise? Is it, what's the problem? Go after that.
Yeah.
That's a way that we can, if it's a school, these are the regulations we'll add, but then also list a bunch of other.
Yeah, and I don't think public schools, I don't see how you could, because the state comes in and do their,
Exactly.
that's why I'm saying public schools are allowed. But you go to private schools, that's a different story. But anyway, go ahead,
Yeah.
we may talk about it later.
Okay. Okay, so God,
I think we should talk about it.
No, I mean, when we get through, get into all the other districts.
Oh.
Okay, general, so let's go, Bruce. Yes, general residential. So this is R2. So these are the smallest homes in Portland, smallest like lot size, right? And they have a variety. So I wanted to throw this in because these are the ones at the top are technically, I think they're 0.17, right? 0.25.
They range from 0.17.
Yeah. So the top two homes that we have, those are a 0.25 lot, but they're a 2,500 square foot lot or square foot house. So it's a big house for a small lot. And then when you move down, so of course the ones at the very bottom, I believe that's the 0.17 square foot lot. And then that house is more around 1,200 square feet. So do we think that this is the same district or do we think it's different? Because again, it comes down to the range. Do you want to just have a minimum like home size that we're saying on this type of lot in R2, we want a minimum of say 1,100 square feet or something like that? Or do y'all think that these are two completely different things because the home is much bigger on the top than it is on the bottom?
Doesn't it depend on the development itself? Like the subdivision, all the homes are set back, all the homes are a certain size. And then
So it
in
can.
that same land use, you might have another subdivision where lots are bigger, houses are set way back.
Yeah, so usually what happens is if you have a development that's coming in, right? So this is what R2. Yes. Yes. So let's say that you've got a development going in right here, right? And it's not already built. So this is what you have going in. If it's an actual builder, you would negotiate that, right? Like they would come in and hit all the minimums and make it like they would just match the rules.
Right.
But if it's a single homeowner in this subdivision, like in that actual district itself, they would get to do only basically the minimums again, but they might have a variety. So you could, what I'm trying to say is say like I'm building on this lot and Brianna's a lot beside me.
In that open area.
I could technically build the one on the bottom and Brianna might say, no, like I want the one in the middle. And so she builds, so in that R2 district, you would have a variety. So the question I'm asking is, do you want an R2 to be a variety? Or would you prefer for it to be sort of the top half versus the bottom half? Does that matter to the community?
Doesn't matter, yeah.
Okay.
Two prescriptions. They're all in the general and the same character.
I mean, I think at that point, if we're getting in, again, this is just me, I think we're getting into the whole like deed restricted HOA section of neighborhoods there.
That's what I was
If you're
thinking.
buying that lot next to Brianna and it's not regulated by the homeowners association in some way, I kind of say they can build what they want to an extent in that neighborhood. I don't know that we need to deal out a 2 and a 3 in town. Again, I know there's a lot of development to be made here, but I don't see a lot of this coming up in town existing being a problem. But that's just me. I don't know. We're looking at the map and we go, wow, man, this feels really, really different. I know we had a little bit of trouble on this side of the table. We had a little trouble delineating, the 2s and the 3s and the 4s yesterday when we were doing residential because they all kind of felt a little nebulous.
Yep. Perfect. That's from the planner's perspective, we love that because you're mixing incomes. And so at the end of the day, like philosophy is to mix incomes. Some places don't like that. They want them to, the character is size. It's that like keeping the top versus the bottom like separate are two things. So I actually think that's a really helpful.
So that's your card character is that different characters in every sector.
Right.
Every small, medium, large, pretty much almost every, even
The town's pretty even, even if it is a little divided. It's not so much so that you feel like there's,
Well, but each subdivision also has its own separate setbacks as well.
Yeah.
That's what they're all saying. Well, that's why if you keep the each area a little similar, that's what helps with that. But so in this undeveloped area, and you start sticking wishy-washy different deals in there, then nobody's gonna want to go in there and put a subdivision in.
Right.
No big development.
Right.
They're gonna go in there and pick it apart.
A lot of cars are built that.
So I don't know.
Developer come in, just goes one house. I mean, they just go in once, so they were all done. That's where you got, like Bertala,
Cause I remember them building the back of that.
You drive down Shopner, it's 3 blocks of the same house.
Yeah.
It's literally the same age structure. One guy's got a porch, one guy's got a closed-in garage, one guy's got a dish in the back, but they're all in the same.
Well, and that's also what's
It's not quite that way, but
Yeah.
that's how they built it, so everything was.
Then on the other side of the street, it's different.
Yeah.
So,
It just depends on and I think at that point, you are looking a little bit at like, if somebody likes a particular character of a neighborhood, and they want to fit into that neighborhood, they'll follow those neighborhood restrictions more than not having. Again, I don't want to go too deep into the weeds with restrictions from the city's perspective. Let the developers, the landowners have some flexibility in their housing. You know, if you want to you want to retire with your wife and build a 1,200 square foot 2-1 on a 2-acre lot. Well, whatever, you can do that, you know, but.
Okay, perfect. That's great. It also allowing that rule sort of allows for Houston.
Yeah.
Which people love. I hate that I live in Houston. Every
It looks
subdivision's like this. Like
Yeah.
nobody wants that boring. This allows for things to be custom as long as they're within the framework. So
Yeah,
it's good.
I think that's a good enough framework for us.
Okay, so let's roll through the regulations and make sure we're okay with them. So this is a district with the smallest lots, right? It allows for the median residential lots with the detached or the attached garages. It allows for what we're calling missing middle housing, which is a townhome, a duplex, or a triplex. So allow for all of those in there. Schools are allowed and also parks and open space. The minimum lot size for these are 10,000 square foot. So we don't want anything smaller than that in this area. Which is, by the way, what the majority of the homes are, when Ed ran the numbers, and that's the majority of the size in the community. The front setbacks and back setbacks, side setbacks are all based off of the existing homes that are there now. 35-foot height, those, I need to revise that, right? So it's 2-story max is what we think.
Yeah.
Okay. We do have a little bit more bulk and density here, so there's gonna be a little bit more open space. There's gonna be more house on the lot, right? It's a lot smaller, so we're keeping it 50%. And then the same for landscaping and buffering and sound. Is there anything in that designation that, I don't know, you're wanting to talk about?
Can you clarify for me under the permitted land uses, we were going through and you said, residential, general, missing middle attached?
Yep.
You said townhome, duplex,
Triplex.
triplex,
Yeah.
that's over here on residential multifamily spelled out. Townhome duplex, it's not spelled out in the general R2. So if we're gonna include them in both, I'd like to see the same wording in both. If we're gonna ban them in one, I think we.
That's why I circled it.
Did you
So-
circle it?
Yeah, on my page.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, that is a great question. So the third question within this district is, do we want to see multifamily of any nature within the R2 district?
I think a duplex would be the most that I'd be comfortable saying, something like that.
Okay.
I think we currently have some duplex to put into a couple of areas. They kind of help out with the portability issues. So I wouldn't want to see tri-quad.
Townhomes?
We have some in our area that.
Yeah, I don't know how that really kind of shakes out, but.
We have townhomes in various states.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I guess.
It'll be.
On by the street.
Well, in our current minimum lot sizes.
If they were towns.
So like duplex townhome.
Are we then changing it?
Two lots. 10 townhomes.
I mean, most of our lots
I don't
are
know, that seems a little,
like 50-foot wide by.
that seems a little more multifamily than it does.
Yeah.
To me to have a
The
whole
land
bunch of
numbers is down 10.
strong.
Families with
You're saying 5.
single.
5,500 is our minimum, and
Yeah, that's.
I mean, look, a lot of them
How do you
have
lot
50,
size?
now quarter lots. But
So 1, 2, 3 family dwellings.
by 50-foot wide by 120 is
One and two.
1 and 2 family dwellings.
Yeah, I think
If
single.
you know a townhome.
around
that's-
town, and that is that is what our minimum is.
Two, one big family.
I'm a little concerned to make a minimum 2,000, so that's good. That's like
Yeah,
a corner lot.
The intention was to be the same size. So let me.
Yeah, look at that because I
I
don't,
mean,
I mean, there are some, but
All of a sudden, wow.
yeah, I'm not,
Yes.
I know all this.
The only-
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but if somebody just came
Yeah,
in.
no.
Those
They're
that
all-
all down the road.
I know, it's
Exactly,
there.
yeah, that's what I'm thinking, because if you allow that kind of deal, and if somebody comes in and just takes up a whole road of those, that kind of changes the character of the neighborhood for me. I mean, I understand having some duplexes in, I can even see, I mean, I see, you know, some townhome deals, but if you start allowing a bunch of quadplexes right across from your 10,000 square foot single family homes, that to me feels like two different streets on one road.
Well,
Personally.
you have to remember that when we say 50% open space, right? What that means is you can't have 2 or 3 driveways, because that's what
Yeah.
sometimes can drive the fact of duplex traffic, so it can cause a traffic issue on the streets. So you can have it, but there are ways they would have to design it to allow for, the
So-
traffic to probably stack on the property instead of in the street. That's why
So
it's written that way.
a minimum of 50% of the property should be open space, which includes driveways.
Yes,
So the driveways are included in open space?
the driveways can be excluded from open space if that's.
That's not how I read that personally. So
So, okay,
is that the intention of that, is the driveways are not open space?
the intention is to figure out what you're trying to prevent possibly in that district and write it in.
Okay, because I'm, when I read that, I thought that open spaces include driveways, green space, and landscape areas.
Yeah.
So if you have the whole front yard as one big parking spot for all your 8 residents.
Yeah.
I would think open space would be.
Right.
Not gonna be green space.
That, but that, I mean, and I'm not trying to be, but isn't
So
that?
let's talk
let it
about
fall?
the next
Green
district.
space.
Let's talk about the next district, because every multifamily property requires approval.
Uh-huh.
So that's why I put it in here, because I thought it would come, you would come back to this one.
Right.
But multifamily, so we look at the MFR district. This is one where it's kind of under discussion, because I've heard the group say, hey, we really want to make sure that we're like getting, again, that mixed middle housing, right? So we're looking for that middle category that we don't have in Fort Lavaca. But I've also heard that we want extra regulation on it and make sure it fits. So the MFR district, the way that we're showing it now, has all of these land uses in here, right? So apartments, you would have the new mobile home developments here that are single lot. That's that, I guess, the 4th picture on the 2nd row. It would allow for townhomes, which is, I believe, the 6th picture. All of these developments in here would have to come to the Planning and Zoning Board for a specific use permit. And if that's the case, if that's what we're looking for, if we're looking for them to be a little bit more regulated, a little bit more controlled, then maybe that's where we park these. We keep them under this space, so they would come to the Planning and Zoning Board, they would be presented, and the Planning and Zoning Board would say yes or no, and then it would go to the council to be approved or rejected.
You're talking about townhomes?
I think anything.
Everything within that.
Everything.
So is that a floating zone or is that an actual set zone?
An actual set zoning district. Yeah, so basically what we're saying is anything in here, we want a little eyes and ears on it just to make sure it's right with us. And so we specifically came and marked those as
So
areas.
Would a single family dwelling be allowed in MFR?
A single dwelling family, if it falls in this
I
category.
mean, stick built,
The what?
just a stick built,
Regular house.
No.
no? Well, any of these places gonna have regulations, like when I lived in Brook Hollow Estate, I could not turn in off of Smith Road into my garage.
Okay.
I could not park on the road.
But we don't have that anymore.
On Smith Road. Yeah. I
We don't
couldn't
have
park-
regulations.
Yeah,
for
really?
that. Not in regards to states, Jay Bay and,
Once you move, they took them all.
yeah.
You know, Justin, I do.
Oh.
You know.
Don't worry, everybody.
Now, Jay Bay, y'all have, they missed that. But not with us, they don't.
So in doing
Oh.
this whole multifamily residential MFR,
Yeah.
does that resolve any confusion with R2? Like quadplex? So where we're only doing the duplex and.
Yeah,
R2 now?
those makes
That's what we're asking. Are we okay with this or not? And let's go back to what's in the other districts. So R2 also has some of the homes that are kind of dilapidated. We would call them restoration. So the question is, what do we want that property to grow up to be? Are we okay with it turning into a duplex, a triplex? What makes sense? Or do we want that to change from a property that's regulated by NFR? So I put this in here as a discussion point to flesh out what we actually want to control.
I guess my question would be then to look at the map and see what we have identified between 3 and 4, what delineates which sections. So I know what parts of town we're talking about. Versus restoration versus, I think there I get into the weeds on the map.
The orange right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, the orange is,
Virginia, so we've got South Virginia,
Phoenix Drive.
Phoenix Drive. But we also want to make sure that we're maintaining some multifamily. We don't want to come through and scrap it out entirely. And so part of this exercise is identifying the future land use map, like what we think is going to stay. But we also need to identify like what we would prefer to change or to have other options. And so that's why they're marked the way they are.
Yeah, the way I see it, and I hate to say this, but it looks like an extra district is needed.
Okay.
An R3 for apartments, townhomes, things like that. Because you have your R2 as your smaller homes, your more dense lots with the with the whatever size home you have, regular stilt build, but you're not allowing, or may not allow apartments because it's not gonna, it won't mix in with that type of neighborhood. So I think apartments, townhomes, quadplexes, triplexes, things like that, it may be needed to be a totally separate district. And then MFR would be your manufactured homes, your RV parks, things like that, that people want to limit in town. At least in this town, we don't want, from what I've heard from the boards is pretty much, we don't want any more RV parks. So, it's going to be limited to where you're going to be able to put these MFRs.
So if we
Because of that.
If we pulled MFR, not necessarily to disallow RV parks, but if you pulled the RV park aspect out of MFR, would we be comfortable expanding where it is on the map to include multifamily development?
So one of the things, again, we have to be consistent. So we can't do spot zoning where we're coming in and we're specifically like, hey, we don't like manufactured home parks. So we're going to put a line around them and say we don't like them. That's what we have to be careful about because it can come off depending on like what, kind of how the whole process goes down. It can look like we don't want them or that we're sort of turning a blind eye to allowing that development in town. That's when we get in trouble. So now if it's based off of like size or density or the fact that maybe one piece is turning to single family homes or something like that, there could be a reason for it, but we have to be super careful. And that's why I put them all together because my thinking was if you put this whole district together and you always have a vote on that type of development because of the impacts on the, of course, the roadways, like traffic, things like that, that's a consistent way to look at multifamily. Versus if, say, we did that to the largest home in town and we started doing like this type of, it can come off a certain way.
Sure.
So it needs to be consistent in that, are we allowing for all of these to turn over in this way? That's kind of why that district is that way.
That works for me. I mean, I like that you got that. So we're talking about infill. So say we have an established subdivision, some homes got demolished, there was some empty property. So you say you got 6 lots. Maybe it's a corner, it's a quarter of a block, but it's an R2.
Mm-hmm.
But because of the situation there, maybe it's close to Austin Street, so it's semi-commercial. Could you then go in with one of these MFR, as a special variant, come back to zoning and say, hey, we have this kind of development, it doesn't fit the purpose now, but it would look good here, and then go through that conversation? Is that so loud?
That's the BBA, right?
You can always rezone.
Right.
We haven't gotten to this one yet, but it sounds like that might also be one of our general commercial districts. In our general commercial district, we actually allow for both. We allow for a mixture of commercial and of residential. And so it could also be in another category. And yes, you can go forward and ask for it. So there's a zoning administrator, which becomes Derek. He would be the one that would be able to look at it and say, hey, does this make sense? But he would have to go through the process to get approval, right, for that item. Yes, you can do that.
So that allows some flexibility. I just want to get it so rigid.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is that we need to define the right, open spaces, you know, that 50% open space, does that include driveway or?
Yeah, I mean, it's really important, we just make sure, I'm just thinking drainage, to make sure you're not concreting the whole lot, and the drainage was not designed for that.
Right.
And drainage was designed for, 50% open green space,
I think she's.
impervious surfaces, and then you go concrete everything, the parking lots and parking spaces, and then,
Run into that problem.
Next
not.
Yeah. Well, now, with TxDOT, I mean, if we have to, they're looking at his attention regardless. Just like,
It would just be.
Yeah, you should just
So Christie, what do you summarize it? I mean, we had a talk about having an R3 or not having an R3. Did we resolve that?
I'm not sure yet. I don't know if we resolved that yet or not.
I think I'm okay not having it, but I don't know that I'm like. It'd be terrible, you know.
Because they have 3 children that
I
are.
don't know that it's needed.
He's asking if you want to vote for your it.
Right.
But I think see how the 50% property open space.
I just- It concerned, I just. That's why.
Yeah.
So keep it simple.
Apartments, townhomes, things like that, they're in more, it's more dense, it's all kind of consistent in the mom's, property use. Manufactured home parks, and RV parks, that's totally different.
Okay.
That's why I think RV parks, manufactured parks don't even have it. How about them don't even have it? Specific use. I mean, that's another.
That's technically what this is, right? Technically, all of them are sort of through investigation.
Yeah, I understand that. I get your concept. It's just, just the use are completely different.
Right.
And to have them in the same district, they just, it works because, I'm sitting here trying to think, where in the world would you put him at bars on our map? Where was, because there's only one place that, the council wants, and planning board wants, RV.
Right.
well, what RV parks? Are they in?
Yeah.
Yeah, so all of those uses enter for there. So it includes like the mobile home parks that are.
Mobile parks, yeah, RV parks are different.
We do have.
Yeah, but a mobile home park in the apartment complex, I'm sorry, townhomes. You think
Yeah.
Jimmy Gilchrist townhomes and manufactured home park right next to each other?
Those are different than.
Well, yeah, but the character is similar, but they're more dense.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's just, they're two totally different. I think RV park manufactured home parks, specific use permit, no designation.
Yeah, these are, so if you go.
So
go on
that,
the page-
that's why I asked if it's just specific.
Yeah, so condition, we have a condition use, so it's manufactured home parks. So all of them.
Okay.
And then we're actually requiring, if you're gonna use on street, we're requiring on-street parking agreement. The city has to approve the right of way for them to use the street. It counts for there's like parking requirement.
Okay, so it's not a set district, it's on the map.
So, yeah, that's the orange one, yes.
Like, if it's conditional use, then it doesn't need to be on the map. Maybe somebody can come in and say,
No, that's how they're grouped together, so you look at the uses on here, and then you look at what they do around town, all the orange ones would actually change. So the rules are regulations, so one of the things that Brianna and I were looking at is the fact that this RV park here is is actually in the district, right? The water district, which we don't love, but we have to treat it the same. Because if we don't, that RV park can just turn. And then there is no hearing about it. We want the public to know. Hey, I'm talking about RV.
Nobody wants them for me.
So that's the vote. That's why you would get to
I
vote.
know, but, depending on the influence or whatever, they may have an opportunity. Because it is potentially allowed because it's in that district. According to that.
It allows apartments. All
Right.
of these that are in the park have to require, so that if you're-
Hey, what are we doing? I got lost in the weeds. Where are we going?
That's because you were over there talking.
I got cookies. I came back in there for 8 months.
You didn't bring any.
Do you want a cookie? I'll get you a cookie. The
No.
problem is, I don't know what we're doing.
Thanks to be grapes.
Yeah, so that's the one that we're requiring.
Okay, so this is the district.
Orange.
This district allows for under a conditional use permit. A manufactured home park. This is Independence Road, by the way.
Okay.
The manufactured home park is, under conditional use. RV park, apartments, or townhomes. Like Jimmy Shelton did. Does that seem kind of? I mean, either one of those four can be applied for in this area.
But it has to be approved, right?
It's conditional use permit, yeah.
You said manufactured homes?
But that use could be permitted here if council and planning and zoning.
I would say
Do you want the-
townhomes and the,
We separated out a section of
I
town
wouldn't do
specifically for RV and manufactured home parks already.
Well, that's what I'm asking, and that's what this is. That's what that is. And that district is all this orange districts in town.
Yeah.
And those types of uses could be permitted if allowed by planning and zoning and council.
So if I understand, I mean, we can't, what you were saying is you were concerned with us trying to weed out mobile homes or RV parks together, but if we designate a
RV.
place or, okay, but mobile manufactured home parks. But if we designate where they can be, which currently we say they can be on Henry Bar Way.
Yes.
If we establish a place, then we're good.
Well, that's what he said, was thinking another.
well, that's what I agree with.
Yeah,
Gary.
because I think what I'm hearing is we do recognize that manufactured homes
Well, yeah.
are separate from
Yeah.
this other stuff.
I agree with Derek.
Okay.
We don't
Yeah.
So what do we want to see them become?
want-
What do you want to see them become?
Which,
Or do we want them to just stay alone? Because the stay alone part we have to be careful about. Because again, that's spot zoning. So we have to be careful that if it turned over, what would it become?
Oh, that'd be supposed.
Because we're singling out a use and we're putting rules only on that one use.
Not of RV parks and manufactured home parks.
Yeah.
Would be two different parks that, it's a unique use.
Okay,
And
so
so-
would we want them to turn into single family homes or something else other than what they are today?
I think we're fine allowing them in the areas that they're in. I think that's the thing. We're okay with them in certain areas. I think I'm starting to, I hate to say it, I'm starting to think maybe we do need another zone because I have a problem going from single family home, everything else.
Okay.
And so there's that area of like, can you separate out townhomes and duplexes from manufactured home parks, RV parks,
Yeah.
quadplex, an apartment building?
Do
So we would allow it today. So there's no specific use permit. We just allow it today.
In those couple of districts, yeah.
Well,
Okay.
for new development, there's a couple specific areas identified. Of course, really by the land use act. But for infill, I mean, if it's already there, then it's there. So.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. So if someone came today, like, let's just say they get to a certain space they want to turn over. It sounds like the only rule they can have now to develop, because permitted land use would only be manufactured home and it would be RV park, that's all they can be. So that's what I'm asking. What would they turn over to?
I don't,
Oh, I'd be fine with turning into apartment complexes
it's not,
or
that's the only thing, it's
quadplexes.
just that's the only place those can go.
Yeah, which is
So-
what the district is, because that's what we're saying is that
Okay.
but you can go back to any land use that's permitted in here, right?
Right.
So those could turn into anything that's on this board as long as they were approved by the planning and zoning board and the council. So it gives more opportunity to turn into something else.
Right.
Does that make sense? 'Cause
Yeah, no, I
otherwise,
think, I don't think I have a problem with R4. I think R4 as a category as it stands looks fine to me.
okay,
My question is, I guess, more about the differences between 3 and 4 being so stark. Do we need another one that contains
defense.
some of R2 and some of R3?
Well, okay, if somebody came in and they wanted to put a manufactured home park along Independence, and we didn't want to do that, what are our reasons to say no?
That's what I'm saying. I
You
think
would-
that should be a
Why?
different
We just
reason.
say no, we don't have to give a reason. We just
You would
I-
absolutely say no. Like there would be all kinds of reasons. It could
Go have
be,
sewer.
it could be,
That's a reason for anything.
it could be a traffic issue. Like you can name whatever, but it gets to go through the public process. And usually what happens in the public process is you get people that come forward and give their thoughts on
Well,
it.
yeah, and well, that's another point that we haven't brought up yet, is the neighbors do have a right to object. But whenever, a manufactured home park is gonna have the same traffic as an apartment complex.
Right.
So if your reason is because of traffic, that you're not letting a manufactured home park, but you allow an apartment complex,
Yeah,
then that's, that could cause an issue.
Well, you can also say that, hey, in the past, the HOAs have fallen through or they don't have certain regulations. You can put additional regulations on top of them.
Can you say it
So-
doesn't fit the, just?
Absolutely. One of my favorite things to do as zoning administrator is I would listen to what the public said. And if they couldn't like negotiate, if I couldn't negotiate that, and I would just say, hey, the public's asked for landscaping, or the public asked for news control, or all these things, and it wasn't met. So it's a no. So it allows for more input when you say no. So I don't know, it depends how public you want it. I think we have controversial issues. It's our role as planners to have it play out publicly. But that's my.
And it's just, my thought is that I'm the one that's gonna be talking to them. And I need to be able to justify why they shouldn't request. for home park.
Yeah.
I can tell them it probably won't get mad,
Yeah.
but
Well,
what's my
you
reason?
also need a place in town to say, this is where this is going. And by the way, right now. And so this is a district. If you're gonna come into the city today, this is a district.
Well, we can do it every day.
So it does have like a conversation. Otherwise, I think if we single out manufactured home and,
Well, that's why I like that floating zone area about, an area of town that needs improvement. That's why I did town. That's what I thought. And that's why it didn't seem to out. The
oh,
manufactured
okay.
home parks, I don't see I don't see that that's gonna really, improve, the city.
Okay.
Per se, I don't think so. Because like you said, the one that we did have, you can see what it looks like now, it's horrible.
Well, and that is the point. So here's the deal. So with manufactured home parks and RV parks, the city cannot rule the way it looks anymore. We can't go with any of that.
No.
But if we require an HOA to come in and maintain that, and that agreement has to be in place with perpetuity of the development falls out, that's your conditional use. You can come in with a mobile home park in the future if you have all these terms and conditions in. But if you don't, we don't want it in the community at all. And so that's your no.
Then you have a lawsuit and you have to kick all those people out of that park. Yeah, it comes to be a big mess.
Right.
When
So,
it's best just prevent it from the get-go.
but
I don't know.
if you
The
didn't
parks,
have
I
a-
don't think, there's a specific little area in your harbor where either one of those parks can go, period. I think, apartments, townhomes and all that other stuff can go in other areas for the oranges. That's my thoughts.
So in the past, we've stuck on RV conversations for months with lots of public comment. So can we move on to general commercial?
Well, it's something that needs to be resolved.
Yeah,
It is, but can it be resolved
That's
not after
solid.
7 PM on a Tuesday?
Yeah, we're already at 7, yes.
Yeah.
So general
Can
commercial,
we skip it and come back to it?
yeah, general commercial. So we are at general commercial. This is also another district where we were allowing for both, commercial and residential. So we're allowing for multifamily. In general, what we have, when we talk about general commercial, these are the areas along our like major corridors where we want the big box, like, commercial and things. We already have a lot of apartments there anyway. And so the whole thing is that we would allow both. We would allow for like the Walmarts, the Starbucks, like any of those kind of like smaller retail shops in there as well. But we would allow the multifamily as well. And so that's what this district is. It's your biggest commercial that we have in town. Biggest lot size.
So I see this one again has RV parks, manufactured home parks. And is it possible to pull that out of that commercial district without getting in trouble and getting into a 30-minute conversation? Because that does worry me about just putting in a manufactured home park across PCD sounds wrong.
General commercial. So what else? This is general.
Wait, what did you say? You wanted to bring out?
On number
So
5, in the permitted land uses.
Yep.
I see the commercial aspects there down to hotels, and then I see residential manufactured, high density attached, multifamily townhome duplex apartment. Then I see manufactured home park and recreational vehicle park, and those don't feel like they would fit into a general commercial district down our corridors.
Yeah, we agreed. So I marked it, I put it on there thinking that was what it looked like, but yeah, this, I think that
That
gets
needs to
crossed
be
out.
Okay, so if we
I
cut
agree.
that out, I think we can skip that part.
Yeah,
All right, cool.
but you're okay with the rest of it?
I think the rest of it makes sense. That's kind of what I think of when I think of down the strip and 35 and all that. Somebody put in a big apartment complex instead of a hotel, I think it would look the same to us.
What's the first one? Residential manufacturing.
Where, I'm sorry, where are you?
That'd be individual.
Right.
No, that would be, like.
Yeah, that's manufactured,
Just to run it by itself.
You just run it by itself. I don't think I can do that either.
Yeah, those come off. It's also the size. Yeah, so we put this together and printed it before we came on this trip. So we kind of modified a little bit based off the conversations we had yesterday. So,
Yeah, I'm just going for clarity and brevity.
no, that's good. That's good. Yeah, the question I had though, high density attached, that was another thing that I had circled. I think from the conversations that we had, because we don't want to go above 3 stories, I'm kind of thinking this one, I think we dropped high density here too as well. So to me, high density in this community would be more like downtown and the waterfront district. I don't think it's necessarily the general commercial district. And I'm curious if you actually want to drop that height a little bit more with this district.
And the G.
The fire chief brought up a good point, we don't have a ladder truck. that can reach that high, So 2.5 stories is probably.
Okay, okay.
30 or 35.
So can I mark out high density residential too? Because we have that on this sheet as well, and I don't think it fits.
High density residential versus just like apartments.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, I'm fine with that. Let's mark that out as well.
Okay.
And then we'll drop the height down to, what did we say, 35? Is that our general height?
Lines are 25 feet.
Okay. Oh, and then the new thing for this one, so for parking,
Fire pitch roofs.
so what we're saying for this one is the development requires a private parking lot. And if it requires anything else that requires on street and to get their parking requirements, they have to come to the city for approval. So in other words, if they're like, I don't know, a townhome or something that's coming in this area, and they're saying that in order for us to meet our parking requirements, we would need the streets. We want to make sure that the city is authorized so that their parking requirements have to be approved by the city. I'm not expecting this to happen very much, but I did put it in there just to make sure.
We already kind of do that internally without this code already. We
Okay.
require parking spaces for,
We have an off-street parking
bedrooms and all that kind of stuff. So we already do require off-street parking for everything. This just gives us the ability to allow on-street parking, right?
Okay, and then the only other change is that, of course, they're gonna have to put in landscaping, right? Because it's retail, commercial, retail and commercial are gonna require that. And then also the fences and planting, so we're gonna require them to put in, generally fences don't go in the front of the yard, right? So if they want to put it needs to go in the back of the yard, it's usually 8 feet tall, and then of course they're gonna have to add landscaping. So we kind of added some rules in there for that.
We do have a landscape ordinance for non-residential.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have fencing.
So that's the only new thing about the ones moving forward that y'all haven't seen yet. Okay. Neighborhood commercial, I'm sorry, we're going to Jack's now. Okay, neighborhood commercial is similar to what we had this last time, except these are kind of your mom and pop shops that are smaller. These areas are not strip centers, so they're usually like single buildings that are located. A lot of times these have been turned over from sort of a gas station to like a UPA office or whatever. We want to allow for that kind of neighborhood feel. They usually look more like the neighborhood itself. And they're just smaller in size. So these are the places that we definitely want to attract kind of the smaller mom and pop shops. I left the Starbucks in there because it is allowed in the GC too. So I just wanted to notify you all that small lots, like, you know, the smaller retail like that are allowed in GC, but they're also allowed in neighborhood and commercial as well, kind of size wise. They both kind of support each other. And then these are the ones that are usually, they can be located likely closer to residential because they don't have a lot of like noise requirements or anything. They're usually a couple of people going into a store a day and coming out, so they're not this huge traffic generator.
Do we have the ability to regulate drive-throughs at all?
Yes.
So, I mean, technically, if Starbucks wanted to move into one of these areas, we're like, we really think this is gonna turn into a big traffic nightmare, and we don't want to have a drive-through, it's just a pull up.
Yeah, so I have that in GC for conditional use permit. Apartments, drive-through restaurants or theater, they all require it. But we can also add that neighborhood commercial as well.
I'd like drive-throughs on 6 as well, if everybody's okay with that.
And then two-story minutes. Were there any other questions about this district? Are we okay with all of the permitted land uses? So I think in general, these are okay on the sheets, but I wanted to make clear. So we've got a walk-in clinic, we've got a home business, we've got indoor recreation, personal fitness, like a gym, like a small gym. We've got restaurants, we've got dentist, vet, accountant, dry cleaners, laundromat, and then of course shopping. So like garden shop, hardware store, farmer's market. Are we okay? Are we missing anything? We okay with that?
I don't like that.
The vet? So
Well,
GC, you want that in GC?
Yeah, because I'm thinking of Luminous Nails right downtown, and they got cattle and horses taken care of.
No, so large vet is in industrial.
It's like a duck.
That's a large vet. This is like cats. This is
Yeah.
like,
The dogs barking at the
No.
this is like dogs and cats.
Neighborhood, commercial, you got dogs. Cause a lot of the vets will keep, I know my wife keeps mine whenever I leave for downtown or
Oh,
whatever.
look at this is boarding.
Yeah, it's boarding.
Yeah, so boarding would go under industrial.
Okay, so this is it, okay.
Also, in the line.
Oh.
Yeah.
Day surgery.
Yeah.
Okay,
Even
gotcha.
if you can get artery there, I think it's more like future bills.
Yeah.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, I can see that.
Oh,
Like.
yeah.
So we did have overnight boarding.
So 7, okay, so downtown core, we move it on again. This is one I wanted to ask if we were okay changing it. So we originally had central business district. We don't really have a central business district here, like it's not very urban. And so we were talking about changing this one to downtown core. So that's a conversation.
Main Street. Main Street.
Main Street district, can you,
Main Street district.
Main Street, yeah, we can do that.
Main Street.
is that specific, I mean, as far as the zoning goes, you have a map identified, is that the only area that's in that map?
For the downtown core,
Or number 7 downtown core, yeah.
we have,
It's that dirt.
I don't know.
Are there multiple areas of that? I just don't want to call it downtown core.
it's right here.
Our downtown
Yeah.
core is Main Street and Railroad.
That's
and-
the only area identified for that.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I think downtown core fits the law.
Okay,
Okay.
cool.
Are you okay with it, James? Do you agree or are we not?
Yeah, we did.
Good?
Okay.
Main Street?
There wasn't like 2 of them.
I don't know, we had Main Street and downtown core, so which one is it?
Well, Main Street district is smaller than downtown core.
Yeah.
We haven't identified Main Street
Is it
district on the book.
Because our established downtown district, it's Main Street, and Railroad Street and Live Oak Street from Virginia.
This is bigger.
So downtown.
So that far, yeah.
Yeah,
That's fine. Okay.
Is it better to change the name because it was a similar one before? It was, do we need to like entirely, because the limits are different? What do y'all think?
What
Yeah, I
do we
mean-
have it identified as for like the restoration grant and stuff like that? I mean, those are
Oh, that's
specific
a good
to.
point.
I mean,
They have
that
historical-
is our established downtown. And so, I mean, and thinking down the road, that ultimately, I'm thinking that those improvements, we're gonna be tying in Main Street to Railroad with our, our linear park. And then even have the potential to tie in some of Live Oak in that area, not restricted just to Main Street, but
Right.
that whole.
But I'm thinking
area.
compared to the downtown core, which looks like it's significantly larger, and then you have a Main Street district, or you have a historical district, like, how do we identify that? What is it called in our current setup? How does the historical commission identify those things? Because if we start talking about them, I don't want to be using the wrong
They need
terms for the
to.
wrong
Yes.
areas. And then have people applying for grant money that they're not eligible for, or have something out, we think we're talking about a square mile, we're only talking about a square block. So I just want to make sure that we get our terminology
Yeah, I
right
mean,
there. We don't
This
have to know that
map
right
is
now.
showing
I just
all
want to make a note
that,
of it.
like original town site is discovered.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because
We
the,
expanded because it really seemed like it was a larger space. We were trying to keep the culture. So we did expand.
the original borders though are on the character area map.
But you can't have residential in there.
Yes.
I'll
Oh,
go to
okay.
downtown core then because Main Street has a
Yeah,
specific thing.
Yeah,
So that was just a general term, but.
Okay.
Let's move on.
I mean, either that or original town site or downtown.
And then the red.
Because
dash
essentially
is
that's what,
character.
for the most
Yeah.
part, that is original town site.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's not even that.
But again, you
But
call it
it's
original
all
town
of
site,
that.
it's
Yeah,
not.
it's not even that.
Right. It's pretty close though.
It's being consistent.
Okay, so this one I originally had on as urban, which is not. I'm gonna have to change that. And the character, I'm gonna have to change that up. Probably similar, yeah. And what we've identified for this one, after our conversations yesterday, I wanted the description changed a little bit because we did put that it's a central gathering place.
Mhm.
But our conversations yesterday, I kind of thought the waterfront district might be a central gathering place. So we might need to wordsmith this a little bit. But the whole point is for it to have, what we're calling high density attached residential, right? So we want it to be mixed use with the commercial on the bottom floors. And then we want it to be close to the street with like, of course, minimal setbacks and then parking on street, off site, and then within the parking structures, like the actual surface parking lot. So it's really the only district that allows for all three. I wasn't sure
Which
which
one
on
were we on?
parking. We are on.
Number 8.
Down one more.
7?
Oh, 7.
There we go.
Okay.
I'm not sure how I feel about that, but I thought I would bring that up because we're allowing on-street, off-site, and also within the parking structures themselves. So we're allowing 3 types.
Yeah, I mean, down here, you've got to have some on screen. Yeah.
Okay. And then we had commercial urban, which I actually think is more. I think it's actually more of our neighborhood.
So the only question I have is the 20% open space. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, some of those, that might be
Yeah, so we'll change that
impossible
to
in some of these locations, right? Even.
Wait, say it, I'm sorry, what were you saying?
Yeah.
20% open space. Do we need a requirement on open space in that district?
Go back and forth.
So we're wanting to add in landscaping, we're
Okay.
wanting to add in green spaces and go all the way to the right of way.
Okay, so that would be, seems like 20% seems. feels
Yes.
large.
Well, some of the ones downtown, they'd just be non-conforming use.
Yeah, they were, because a lot of those, the entire building
Right.
fills up the entire.
Yeah, it's gonna be a building.
That's what I'm saying. So can we put 20% in there?
We can differentiate,
Just say landscaping,
residential.
appropriate landscaping, or can you say, that's.
Yeah, that's a good point. We can differentiate the properties that are residential. That's a good point. You bring up a great question. I'll have to look at the numbers again and come back. Yeah, but
Well-
basically what we're saying is we want landscaping, even
Yeah,
if
I
they're.
think, well, I mean, if they're non-conforming use, and I mean, they're gonna continue to be that way until they get torn down, and these are not, we're not gonna anticipate them getting torn down.
And again, I mean,
So they can remain there like grandfather.
and on Main Street, I mean, the landscape is gonna basically be in the right of way.
Right,
In our, improvements.
yeah, but if there's a vacant lot downtown,
Some,
or whatever, or in that downtown corridor, then, they'd have to do a landscaping for any new versus being done.
But to do that, they wouldn't be in line with all the other buildings, they'd have to be.
Well, we could allow landscaping in the right of way for the city, like, in the agreement. But it have to be maintained by okay.
So in the case where somebody comes in and tries to rehab something on Main Street after, let's say, a fire, and you come in and you try to fix that up, don't you lose your non-conforming use and grandfathering if you get a 50% restructuring or something like that? Don't we normally?
I mean, yeah, it would have to
Well,
comply.
They would have to get a current standards, so whatever our standards are today. We were just talking about in order to meet that landscaping requirement. In most districts I've had in the past, we've allowed landscaping in the right of way for the cities, like for approval of the city, but it requires a maintenance agreement. So it's just you just provided, maintenance agreement and put your landscaping in.
I don't think us with our maintenance, we wouldn't have to maintain everything. They would maintain what's in front of their shop.
Right.
And if it's more than 50%, then they can request a variance to that requirement.
I'm just thinking like if I bought Melcher's old building and tried to fix it up, would I have to move the whole building back 10 foot?
No.
Right?
No.
And that's the kind of thing, like how much, where do you have to?
No, that's why we're making it
Sod.
an exception. I'm glad he said that. Where we're gonna allow landscaping to actually be in the right of way, which is different. So we're saying, putting right of way, now you need your requirements, which is different. So I think it's basically like, what's the structure of the building? We look at it and say, hey, it's not possible. And so this is the next thing you can't do.
So don't worry about green space in the downtown core.
Yeah, not in a building that they're not tearing down. So
Yeah.
existing, if you're thinking of existing,
Yeah.
we're gonna keep,
Okay, cool. Yeah, I just want to preserve facades and historical
Yeah.
looks.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up though, because I hadn't thought about that.
Also cheaper.
Okay, and then on to the height requirement, are we still at 3 feet? No.
35.
3 feet. 3 feet, that's a.
Sorry.
That's cool.
Yeah, 3 stories.
Okay. Okay, and then moving to waterfront district, okay. So waterfront district, I'm still, from our conversation last night, I'm kind of wondering if we need to change the description from the downtown core, we're talking about gathering place. Do I need to take that first sentence off of this and for an add to mixed use district, and that we're saying it's a central gathering place for the community where the properties are located near the east side of the community. So like we kind of added in on 8. Is your thought in the community that gathering is in downtown or is gathering in the waterfront district?
Really?
Okay.
There's
There's not a lot of room to gather
Okay.
in the central business district unless we block off the road though.
Well, there's a.
But there's that little Sterling.
Yeah, the one you drive right by, there used to be one building.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, and Main Street in Virginia, there's a whole block.
Gotta work.
Yeah, they can still be together though. I mean, it's kind of hard to.
Well, that's what's unique about here is that it all kind of ties together. Yeah, absolutely. Both of them.
Okay.
Both.
So in y'all's mind, that's what I'm trying to get at, when people are going and gathering, is it in it seems to me, and I could be totally wrong, it seems to me like the waterfront district is a place that you're kind of maybe like wanting people to stroll. And maybe you want people in downtown to gather, which are similar words, but they're
Well, that's what
different.
the Plaza is gonna be on the waterfront development. Right? I mean, that is gonna be.
Oh, that's what we're calling it.
On the waterfront development plan, that plaza right there.
The downtown waterfront, yeah, I mean,
There's the water, it's across the street from Commerce, so that whole area becomes a walking, it's a walking district, blah, blah, blah. So, I mean, that's your, to your point.
yeah, I mean, that's, and that all ties into the downtown, what we called it the downtown waterfront. Because it's waterfront, but it included our immediate downtown, not the whole district.
Okay.
Again, from the railroad line to Virginia.
Okay. So this district, we have similar like commercial, right, like what we have in downtown. except maybe a little more specific, so boutique, hotels and motels. This is the district where we need to be super specific on what we want and do not want, because it is so special right in town. I had put high density residential in there, knowing that it's 3 foot tall. Are we sure? I mean, 3 stories tall.
Yes, he's stuck on that 3
I
foot.
can't do that. Do you want to expand residential along the water to be taller than the 36 feet? Yeah, 3 stories. What's the thought? What's the process there? What are y'all thinking?
If we go
Would it-
36 feet, I mean, nobody's gonna see over it anyway,
Mhm.
so why not just go higher? What do you guys think?
Well, we need a
On the water.
fire truck.
A high rise down there.
We need a ladder truck.
But I mean, even then, we have buildings now that don't meet that ladder truck requirement. so
Yeah, but I think at
we're gonna
one
turn
point,
it
you
over.
know, the more we get, we're gonna, yeah.
But don't we have that agreement with Mosa or?
It doesn't do anything good.
But I mean, if somebody had a great design coming in, we could allow higher, right?
And they can help us buy a ladder
They
truck.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It would
Just
be
have
a
a
market.
ladder goes on the side of that one building.
Yeah, there you go.
We don't want high rise along the water where.
I wouldn't want to be able to see it on my house.
Yeah, we
don't
I
want to
wouldn't want to be able to see it all the way from my house, but, you know,
Why not?
And the retail,
It's not blocking your waterfront view or nothing.
it would need to be light retail.
So, you don't do anything.
it'll look kind
Yeah,
of.
because when you say retail, you know, that could even be Walmart or H-E-B.
But,
What do you think about high
Yeah,
rise?
so that's what I was thinking, light commercial.
Wouldn't mind it.
well, I think the whole tent is like boutique. So
So that's what I mean.
That would be
It's
something
a,
they could look
it's
up.
basically
They can look
the
up.
8 feet.
But it needs to be in there.
Yeah, it would be like, even if it was like, we wouldn't allow for that.
Heavy retail. not something-
Yeah, because like,
Higher than
it's
that.
like this.
I don't know about that. I'm done. I'm like you.
So is that, so the waterfront district we made 8 is not the mixed use 8, or is it, clarify that for me. Mine says mixed use. Are we talking about the
Yeah,
same
so
land? Is it correct?
originally, I
Same
think
thing.
originally,
Different type.
I think it was called mixed use, and then we got to looking at it, we're like, we actually think that we need to give it a better name. So we took a
Okay.
stab at waterfront district.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm just checking to make sure that it was just a retitling, it wasn't like the
Yeah,
traditional.
no, it's just
Yeah.
apparently previous presentations had that, and I didn't want to confuse y'all, so I was like,
I got you.
took it off, and then you are like, what's
Where'd
this?
it
It's
go?
new.
What, why are the side setbacks 7 foot? It seems like an odd number.
For
For the
mixed
mixed
use.
use.
25
for higher, but 7 seems.
So if we were gonna do high density residential, they pretty much can sort of like a firewood jump from like building to building. And so the thinking was like to have enough space in there to be able to actually like get in and improve a house and things. But if we're not doing high density, we could just do a 0 foot setback.
Zero, I'm gonna do it, no short.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, 0 foot.
I was gonna say
building
5
code
is
dictates how to build it.
5 makes 10.
Or that'd be a tough 1A or 1B structure. It would be fire resistant.
Yeah, pretty much.
We'd make sure that.
Except in the.
Yeah, 0 foot. So the buildings would just, they would just
Yeah.
be right on top.
Locked up bakery.
That'd be right on top of it.
Yeah, it'd be the, the type of construction, so you go way up, right?
Yeah.
It wouldn't be just a building.
Zero.
That's fine.
So what did we decide on height for this area?
Justin said, go all the way.
I'm kind of open to having a high rise because you put a restaurant at the top or maybe a lot of cool things done with it.
You said no.
I was up for it, but my group, they were getting, and then now after thinking about it, yeah, I want
Well,
to.
that property that the city owns, that'd be an outdoor spot for.
We do need something higher so we can walk. I think, I really do.
Nice restaurant. Somewhere doesn't count.
I'm not saying way up there like Houston
Well,
stuff, but
Like that property is all the way from downtown, so people downtown, they don't see the high rise.
Yeah, exactly.
Really.
You want to block the pavement.
Right.
Well, like maybe over there where the new Scully's is, like that area would be prime.
Yeah.
area.
Or where Scully's is, because they're gonna be moving.
Yeah.
You're looking for.
That whole port.
Y'all want to have,
See that?
So we could negotiate a higher number, but I don't want
Way high.
Or something.
So I'm thinking like a six.
And like Jody said, they can help with paying for
I
the
think
letter.
65, but I see it. I'm thinking more 5 or.
okay, so y'all want to put down as negotiable, that you want to negotiate if it's over 3 stories high, it's negotiable.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Again, the minimum 30% property open space on that, I think is kind of the same issue as the number 7 CCD. You know, 30%, kind of a high number to expect in that area. It's gonna be very prime real estate. You're gonna have some difficulty with parking.
Wait, what'd you say? I'm sorry.
The 30% bulk and density on that mixed use. I think we have the same problem there if you want 7. I'm just not sure if it's gonna fit, you know, tight.
So
waterfront property.
So that is to preserve the beach area,
Okay.
to have a setback from the water.
So
So,
that,
So they will need some landscaping too.
so could we put that in setbacks with setback from the water, or would that, does that fit in the minimum? Because it doesn't really, if I leave the back of my property open, I can be right up on the end of the water.
well, it begs the question of, do you want to put an easement through there to have a private beach, or do you want it to be a public beach?
I think we're putting the boardwalks and stuff so people can walk around in
Yeah,
there.
but we've got to remember, we don't really have a beach.
Yeah.
I mean, we have a seawall along private property that's 5 feet high.
I don't want to.
And so below that, I mean, it's private property. So the only beach we've really got is, you know, the beach we built at Lighthouse Beach.
So would it become a boardwalk?
And a lot of those are like, it's wetlands. It's not beach, it's wetlands.
All wetlands.
So,
Right.
I mean, and that's even what, like Scully's is looking at. All that is wetlands. I mean, if they originally wanted to build all the way out, that's great. You gotta deal with war for 2 years, you know.
Right.
Do boardwalks and that.
But in order to connect, this is the time to talk about it, right? So wanting a trail or something back there, or just a connection point, like we look at this picture on the top left, even something that's like
Yeah, I mean, well, granted, one thing that I've heard from, you know, all the time, people do want to have, and I guess this is a time to plan something like that. You know, if we could build some kind of a boardwalk that would go, you know, from this area all along up to Lighthouse Beach.
Yeah.
Now, all that,
And
a lot of this is
would be
private
nice.
property,
Of
so
course, it's.
I don't know, you know, how you establish some kind of an easement in your plan, and then if somebody wanted to develop it, we've got the easement in there, that,
Yeah.
you know, they've got to provide it.
we would write it in here and say 30% of that includes your boardwalk. And then we would talk about what the boardwalk is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would just like
So-
to see that people don't come out and build, you know, houses on the edge of the water, stick built with a little deck kicking out, and then
Yeah.
kill the sight line of the beach and
Mhm.
marshland.
Yeah.
I know the idea is we have to protect wetlands, you know, we can build, you got enough money, you go out there and put a pile on the ground, I don't care who they are. They're gonna find a way to edge up as much as they can to that waterfront and privatize it like they did in California, and rope it off. And
Yeah.
I just don't wanna see that, because that's, we're all talking about how much we love our waterfront, I don't look forward to, living shoreline and boardwalk, and if somebody comes in and takes advantage of all this hard work and build themselves a primo house.
Yeah.
So I'd like to see a little setback from the waterfront. Plus, you know, they you don't have to worry so much about the erosion.
So then I think what I'm hearing you say is a 30-foot back setback.
Yeah, I'd like to see a bulkhead all along there with a 10-foot sidewalk lighting.
But when you say that, because I mean, I'm just, you know, thinking sometimes the property line, I mean, the property line is actually out in the water. But of course, the state owns up
Right.
until the mean high tide line, so it's 30 foot from what? The mean high tide line, property line, it may not matter because it's out in the water.
Yeah.
Right.
The landowner's property line is.
It's-
60 feet
Right,
out.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I thought when water encroached your land, that was like the beach. it becomes a state park.
It is, but that's what I'm asking though, but
But
You know-
like Navi Dog used to own so much that's already out under the water, but it doesn't now, right? The Begun or whatever. And they used to own
Oh, the
part
hotel?
of the, where, huh? The
The
hotel.
hotel, the Sea
No,
Hotel?
because all
I thought
that
they
was-
used to have land out under the water.
Well, they had that whole thing.
I mean, that's all,
You can get access, but the boardwalk, that's not.
that's, that.
Most of
But
the-
I don't think.
But yeah, I mean, in reality might be, just need
Was
to
it?
be cognizant of that. It's not necessarily property line, but it's the jurisdiction.
In business park and industrial, there's the last two.
Yes.
No, I mean, like on the setback, you get enough definition to.
I gotta look up, so littoral rights, like when the water, essentially when a property is submerged in water, there are rules for that. I'm trying to remember the
So
latest.
30 feet is what the demarcation line.
Yeah, we're gonna have to put something in there, but we need to add that in. So like looking at the easement.
Yeah.
Because if y'all wanna keep that public, there's gotta be something, some kind of line.
I mean,
drawn on a
well,
page or
it's not
something.
keeping it, making it public, because it's not public now. You know, I
Right.
mean, all that is private land.
Since it's state, because the state's
I mean, yeah, we could go out to water. If we get an easement from GLO, we could build out in the water. You know.
Yeah, it would be a beach line essentially.
Yeah, we need to think a lot about
Our
that.
watermark. But we could also draw on our map, we could draw on here.
As a master
Intention is
Yeah.
to, it's a habit.
Yeah.
So we could add it in here.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, y'all, next.
Yeah.
Us now.
All right, so this business district, business park, is the light purple we have in here. So with industrial and business park, I think we have to kind of talk about them together. Industrial is like on our map, our dark purple. These are our heavy industrial that we have now. The intent is not to expand, it's just to keep what we have. So, you know, we've got an airport, we've got in the heavy industrial, we've got the Alcoa property, the original Alcoa property.
Do they still utilize the airport? Anybody know?
Yeah, they
So,
still,
they-
it's still.
Yeah.
They still use it.
Yeah.
Okay. They'll still fly out.
Who's that?
No, we're there, down the road.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they got some big event coming up.
Yeah, but I mean, that's down there, the county.
6 Mile one out there.
But I know, I'm talking about Tanner's.
Oh,
That's what, is Tanner still an airport?
I know.
it's all overgrown and everything. I don't think it's being used. It's all overgrown.
See that, I mean, that's.
Them crop dusters,
I don't think it's.
them crop dusters might use it.
So we can.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Okay.
We need to look at that, but I don't think it's an airport.
They're local. They're local.
So industrial,
Guys.
so there's the existing purple districts, and in general, we've added.
They got their own
some
private-
business park around it.
You got your own.
The biggest discussion, I think, is on the top, is kind of on the north side of the city, and we want to maintain this area. It's business park, this area here.
Yeah.
We've kind of circled around and around in that. Do y'all like this area? Do you not? So if Amazon came today.
If Amazon comes,
Yeah, since that.
like if we build out Smithville,
But I know, it'd be right.
Bill, what about Caterpillar?
all right, Caterpillar comes, and they put it on this side of Smith Road, and we keep all this residential.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, all this purple is fine. I keep this residential.
Or even at least this part, residential, I don't know.
What is it?
How is it?
What's that?
You know, we got some kind of loop around here. But no, they're by the post office.
Right here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Keep all along here residential. Leave.
Yeah,
from here that way.
Yeah.
That business park would be right next to the restaurant.
So what, you wanna redraw it?
Business park.
Okay. market, which they do. Yeah. But I can tell you that I don't know what kind of residential you want. It's not gonna be R1. Non-residential does not want a business park around that. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we still have all this open space going over here
Right.
too.
Well, but it's not waterfront.
But you wouldn't want to put 5 acre tracts out there on the waterfront anyway. Like what I'm used to, Rockport and Fort Connor is kind of skinny lots so you can pack a bunch of houses in there, which is that's our.
But again, you gotta remember, we're not on the golf.
Oh, the back road.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to live on the water out there one day.
I see it like a little smile and I'm like, you do it. No judgment from me.
Okay, so one edit I wanted to make was, yesterday we talked about Caterpillar or Amazon coming in here and building in this purple area.
Yeah.
But I would have liked to see the water side of, well, this would be village, all this piece right here, stay green residential.
So you'd have to go through the business park to get to the residential.
No, right.
Well, what about coming this? There won't be no access to this side? Without 10 items?
This is the proposed village road.
You're out village.
So from a public works side, I definitely know that you could connect there, you can, but I know that our public works director is saying like, we
I
can
mean,
keep those.
Those
separate.
would need to be, they would need to be at least, what, an acre so that you could have a well
Septic tank.
and a septic tank out there.
Yeah.
But you're not, I mean, it wouldn't be realistic. Yeah.
You don't think we'd ever tie it in? I mean, it's,
Water maybe, sewer.
okay.
Yeah, I don't think our plan, that's the hardest part in town to get to. Like, look at the amount of infrastructure that needs to be built. It's not a priority, especially with the 1 acre, like, 1 acre property. Like, it's not hard to put that many, like, happening.
Yeah.
But you don't get.
And the reality is with buffer zones and everything required for a septic system, you probably need more than.
They would need it.
Probably need a couple acres.
They would need it.
Because of, because of the elevation, a lot of that down. I mean, I know that's on the bluff.
Only when it rains.
Just kind of-
Only when it rains.
Some of your acreage is gonna be the beach, so you might need more than an acre.
But that's where the desal plant's gonna go.
Desal?
Yeah, we're good.
So what's the discussion here, Frank, so we can move on? Conversation.
So we're talking about business park. That is one of the hardest part in town for water and sanitary, to expand water and sanitary where we have our current plan, you can capacity and all the things, right? So when we talk to the public works director, it's gonna be pretty tough to get lines up there. And then when you look at the cost of the city to run them, it's not really advantageous to do that, right? And so I know it's waterfront, which sounds great, but I think at the end of the day, that's probably a good place for putting tax base, because it would be on the developed, it would be on what Alcoa owns that, right? A lot of it.
No.
It would be Formosa.
No, Formosa owns this right here, and the private owners own this.
Okay,
Like a
so
third.
Formosa would be required, the public works, right? When we talked about this, he said he would actually require them to have their own separate, like, how treatment plant stuff, because he does have things in our drinking water. So the whole thinking is, I can't imagine why we would want to put residential subdivision up there around a property that's possibly a Formosa property.
So how does that impact the private owners right now if they want to put a house up on the land they already own? And we've designated that this.
Yeah, so if it shows industrial, they have to approach the city, and they'd probably be a reason. Yeah, but it would come to Derek, and Derek would say, give me your page, and then he would make a call. So here's the thing, future land use, it's just an idea, right? Zoning, it's real. It would require a reason. in order for them to develop today. But I also don't know why in today's environment, if they have like a facility that needs to build, if public works records and turn it down, it kind of makes sense, you could rezone. But it's not, I don't think we want to get in the business of putting more residential like properties out there that the city can't supply. So it's something to think about.
That's a dream killer.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's that area that starts to build up and there starts to be more like residential going that way and then it can change. So this is the plan today, right? It doesn't mean that zoning rules can't change for dreams. Yeah.
So I guess if I was a landowner out there, I would not want that zoned business park. Because I would want to be able to put, replat my land and put three houses out there, right?
Yeah.
I mean, right now, I think it's basically used for farmland.
Well, it is
Yeah,
just
it
our
is.
land, but we have a couple of those places popping up in the county and, somebody's son wants to, I have a hard time, saying, no, you can't do that.
Yeah.
So, that's where I'm at.
I
Okay.
think the idea of us planning it this way
Because
though,
it's so far.
the way that this map would signal is it would signal to those landowners that we're trying to put some sort of target industry out of it.
Right.
And so they would, if somebody comes in and wants to buy up these properties, it would be a unified push that the city's behind this idea that we want this tax base. They kind of get, I'm not saying we're telling people to move out, but it gives them the understanding of like, this is what we predict is gonna be your neighbor.
I'm kind of with Tim. I mean, before we adopt something like this, I think we do need to talk to them and let them know and just see what their reaction is. But again, I mean, it could be, they, if Amazon, somebody came in looking for land, might be willing to pay big dollars for it, and they might be all fine with it.
Are we discussing the future land use plan or the zoning?
Zoning.
The zoning map.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
so
don't, I think in the future land use plan, I think it should be industrial. But I just,
Zoning line.
the zoning was like, yeah, I'd have a hard time with that too.
Well, what would we zone it as?
So for most of property though, like, would they want to like?
They were looking at doing a golf course out there, so.
Yeah.
And they're not gonna do anything.
I know, I said there was,
So we would just take a rural undeveloped.
well, yeah,
Well,
or
but here's again, if you
Okay.
get an Amazon center, where does it go?
in the future.
Not up there.
Victoria.
So
Would you put
can
on
we
the
zone it
front?
as RU and
Yeah,
already
there
in
you
this
go.
is-
Right,
this-
Victoria.
this is part-
Do what?
Can we zone it as RU and land use it as a business park? No.
Because here's the deal, if we do that, every RU property would allow for a business park.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a map, there's like the physical location of
That's
items,
what he was trying to.
but then there's a land use side, so there's a second impact that if you list that as land use, that it would allow all throughout your ETJ. Which I don't think you wanna do that, I think you wanna be real specific where, so if we wanna be specific, then I think we need to redraw the boundary, what that is.
The other option is.
Instead of being such a big purple area, maybe it's what, the thing.
Couldn't something like that go behind, like the dealerships and stuff?
That's what I said.
That's what we got.
That's another.
That's what I
We have
said.
that.
Great
We
place,
have
I
that.
like that.
Look what I said.
It's not.
You could extend it.
I thought.
We're talking about the wind.
So we'll
Oh,
purpose-
that was right smack in the middle of town. That would not be good.
Okay, well,
Well,
so in order to move on, does anybody, if we just look at this way, and then we're gonna have another public meeting anyway, maybe we do contact the owners just to,
Let 'em know.
Yeah, just let them know, see what kind of heartburn we get, if
Yeah.
not, then.
And currently it's.
Right, because
a little undeveloped.
And it's not happen, it's just, they would have to go through some extra steps to make it.
Yeah.
Maybe 25 years from
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And as long as they keep
now. Okay.
ranching or farming or whatever they're doing, it doesn't change.
But to Justin's point, it looks like we have plenty of.
It's dinner time. Do we have a third thing to do after the industrial was grown? Eighteen cookies in the hand. Snack.
Okay, so.
And I won't have you. I'm not breakfast.
And I think here's the just
See what? Perfect.
We're on the.
yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Motion to adjourn.
I mean, Tim, the only other thing I was noticing, see, the only other thing I was noticing, what you thought, is right down here, this really should be industrial, not, I think the distinction between waterfront and industrial ought to be right along where, what was,
That Dawkins.
yeah, the road right here.
That down Virginia?
All,
Doctor, what's his name?
but all this would be industrial, right? Waterfront is not, is right here.
I don't
So that would be like,
Well,
You know my name.
this.
Okay, that would be in the.
This is not gonna be industrial.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, you can't vote today.
it's a standard system.
Look at the, go look at the wetland snapper. That wetland. Oh, this is where the land potentially.
Right.
Ready to adjourn?
Building.
Yeah, we are. We at a point we can adjourn, everybody is leaving. We'll just say
Adjourn.
7:49, 7:50.
I got it recorded, we adjourn.
7:50.
Adjourn. I think we're in.
Mayor said.